Ah, yeah. Wow. Wow. Mm. Hello, ladies. Hi, Arba. Hi, Daisy. Let's see. Hmm. Ah, Tammy is on YouTube. Hi, Tammy. Thanks for joining in. Sorry for the background noise. I couldn't find my microphone. Mm, yeah. Hi, Adeswa. Oh, thanks for joining. Mm, no problem. No problem, Tam. So I see people are still joining. So I'm streaming live from the bookstore. As you can see the books behind me. Hi, Thiola. Thanks for joining. I hope this turns out exciting. Okay, we started late, so for the sake of those who are waiting, I think we'll just start. So I want to start with a short prayer, sort of like an opening prayer. So, Father Lord, thank you for this opportunity to share readings and thoughts about books with like minded individuals. I pray asking that this first episode will go off without a hitch and that everyone who joins in will leave feeling enriched by the discussion. And I pray that the rest of the series will provide opportunities for authors to spread the word about their books, for people to share their love of books, etc. And may your glory be seen through it all. In Jesus' name, amen. All right. So, to start off, I'm going to introduce the vision behind this series. So, as a lot of people know, I've had a YouTube channel for a while, even though it's been sporadic because, juggling life responsibilities and trying to make content is not that easy, especially for YouTube, where there's a lot of editing involved. But I've always been passionate about reading, passionate about sharing my love of reading, because from personal experience I've seen how much reading opens up your mind to the world, to different ideas, to new ways of thinking, improving lives. And so I'm hoping that through this series, more people will ignite their love of reading, because I've read somewhere, I forget who this quote is attributed to, but basically, if you don't like reading, it's because you haven't found or met the right book yet. I strongly believe that there's a book out there for everyone. And I'm particularly passionate about promoting African and Black writing because there's, Black authors are severely underrepresented in the publishing world, and representation matters because if it didn't matter, um, the Western world wouldn't be doing all they could to push as much of their literature as possible. And there's this whole is there an African proverb that says that basically the one who tells the story is the hero. They will make themselves the hero if they are the ones telling the story. And so it's important for Africans, Black people, and underrepresented races to ensure that they tell their own stories. And also, I'm particularly passionate about Christian literature as well. And as I'm journeying through my Christian, um, my spiritual life, growing as a Christian, I've come to realize that there are a lot of misconceptions about Christian literature. People think Christian literature is boring. They think there is nothing exciting to be found in Christian fiction or even nonfiction. And so I'm hoping to debunk some of those myths through some of my recommendations. So after this episode and following on, you can expect a lot of books that highlight Christian fiction and nonfiction, as well as African and African American, Caribbean, Black diasporan literature to a large extent. And this will be taking the form of, very relaxed sessions where if you feel like you're never able to make time to read, we can just, sit quietly and read for a few minutes and then, share what each of us is reading. And then also, eventually, I will be inviting authors to come on to talk about their books, you know, and then also I will be basically sharing some book recommendations as well and talking about the books we are reading in our book club. Now, talking about book club, I have two, I should say two broad book clubs because one of the book clubs is an umbrella for about four. But the newest and the one which is still open to new members is the Black Christian Romance Book Club. I'll put the link to join the book clubs in my bio on Instagram at Bookworm in GH. And then also it's on my bookstore's bio, Akenkan Books. Yeah, so Black Christian Romance is a book club that has been formed to read romance books written by Black authors. So authors from Africa, from America, from the UK, from the Caribbean will be highlighting and reading those books, because even if you do a small search on the internet for Christian romance books, you see that they are predominantly white authored. Nanaja, yes, yes, yes. A lot of sit quietly and reads coming on. I didn't even expect to talk so much today, but this is an introduction to the series, so I have to, give shed some light on the purpose. Sorry, let me adjust the Instagram. Okay, so yeah, so Black Christian Romance. So it's going to feature interracial romances, but the books will be authored by Black authors because I really want Black authors to get visibility. And I mean, for those of you know, I am an author, a Black author. So to some extent, I have self-interest. And of course, a lot of the books I'll be highlighting will be available in this bookstore as well. And so, yeah, so that's for Black Christian romance. So I will highlight one of the books we read first, and then I have a Akenkan book club, which focuses on, general fiction. So, Black fiction, and then also we'll be reading some Christian fiction as well. Um, I think when I show the books you are currently reading, it will shed more light on the kinds of books you can expect from Akenkan Book Club. So that one is tied to the bookstore because the bookstore is Akenkan Bookstore. So let me get into it. So today I will read snippets from each of the books for the two book clubs. And the first one is The Usurper's Dream by Yayi Kobna. And this is the book of the month for the Akenkan Book Club. And it's a historical fantasy novel, which is the first in a series. And it follows the story of Okonfo, who was believed to be the the spiritual head of the Ashanti kingdom, whose conjuring of the golden stool led to the installment of the first Ashanti king, Osei Tutu the first. And yeah, so it has elements of history, fantasy, magical realism, and it's quite a fascinating read. And the beginning is it hooks you right in. And the second book, which I'll get into maybe in the second half of today's episode, is Take a Ride with Me by Kara Joy. So she's also a Ghanaian author, and this is a Christian romance set in the U.S. And the male main character is half Korean, half Ghanaian, and the female main character is of Ghanaian descent. So, yeah. So to start off, I'm going to read the first few pages of The Usurper's Dream, the our current book of the month for Akenkan Book Club. Okay. So before the prologue, there's, sort of a prelude to the prologue. And so it says, The Usurper's Dream. The Ashanti history is one of richness, almost like a page from an epic fantasy novel. It has its magic, gods, priests, and oracles, and kings warring against greater forces. Beginning as a small state of Kwaman, it would grow to become one of the greatest empires in West Africa, with influences crossing over to 3 continents. Our story opens in the 17th century with Osei Tutu and his quest to unite independent states into one of the most powerful political and military states. The Usurper's Dream is the first of 5 historical fantasy series of novels detailing the rise of the Ashanti Empire. And so that's like the prelude to the story. Okay. Now I will read the prologue. Let me see. Okay. So, Asantua's cries pierce through the still night. In the hut, the oracles of Asaseya, the goddess of the earth and fertility. Okay, give me a minute. I have to reshare. think someone wanted the link. So how do I reshare? Anyway, I'll have to figure it out later. All right, so let me start again. The prologue. As Santo's cries pierced through the still night. In the hut, the oracles of Asaseya, the goddess of the earth and fertility, huddled around her to welcome the birth of a baby girl as it has been since the dawn of time. The line of priestesses would remain unbroken. She could hear the reverberating sounds of incantations and prayers of her fellow sisters who were gathered outside the birthing hut. The mistress of the order bent over the expectant mother and encouraged her with soothing words. The mother to be lay stark naked with her legs and arms spread apart and held tightly by her fellow sisters. In a corner, some initiates dug out a small hole in the ground into which they lined dried branches and twigs before lighting a fire. As the fire roared to life, Nana, the most gifted soothsayer of the women, threw some dry chicken bones into the fire and prepared herself to tell the fortune of the new arrival. The crackling sounds of the bones filled the room. At the sound of the last crack, the youngest of the priestesses shut her eyes and sent her bare hands into the open flame. Nana began to mutter incoherently. The smoke rose, slowly forming out a shape. Asantua fell back. She was exhausted. Her breathing was slow, and she did so with a lot of pain. Her face was drained of expression. The mistress sensed her soul slipping out of her body into the land of the forefathers. Heavens, the mistress prayed. All births were difficult, but this one seemed to take a toll on all of them. Never had all the sisters been summoned outside to pray during a delivery, and now it seemed all that was meant to be in vain. They had been with the mother for an entire day, but the baby had still refused to come. All the potions they had fed Asantua had done nothing to relieve the pain. It was as if this child wanted its mother to feel every inch of angst about the birth. The mistress had always harbored the thoughts that this child was going to be very powerful. During Asantua's pregnancy, the young expectant mother's powers had heightened, but what dumbfounded the mistress mostly was Asantua's ability to display other magical abilities she had not possessed or displayed until only after taking seed. The mother's labored breathing caught the mistress's drifting thoughts. Come on, the mistress yelled. You are a daughter of Asaseya. Do your duty. She held Asantua's hand, gently caressing it till she got to her shoulder. The younger sister looked at the mistress in the eye, silently pleading to be let go. The mistress shook her head in response. An oracle of Asaseya does not give up during childbirth. You serve the goddess of the earth. Find your strength in her. The mistress ordered the dying mother. I see a head, the midwife yelled excitedly, bent over Asantua's open legs. The mistress's words worked. Asantua squealed and gave a final push. She felt the baby slip out of her, but there was no cry to indicate its presence in the land of the living. The silence from the sisters gathered around her was ominous. The mistress gently let Asantua's hand down onto the bedding and walked down to the midwife, who was transfixed, looking at the newborn. The mistress managed to hold off her scream. Nana was, however, thrown off by the image of the shape of a skull formed by the smoke. The smoke sucked itself in before assuming the shape of a knife. The mistress grabbed the newborn baby by its ankle and held it high for all in the room to see. The sight of his little male organ stunned the women. Even worse was the full white hair that covered the baby's scalp. The new mother would have cried if she had the strength. Never had an oracle birthed a male child. The mistress shook the baby, tiptoeing between fear and trepidation. The little baby boy finally let out a cry from being swung around violently. War and death is what this child will bring. Wherever he goes, chaos will be wrought, families torn apart, blood will soak the earth all his life, Nana prophesied. She made no effort to hide the fear displayed on her face. Her voice was shaky as she spoke. It sounded alien to the oracle known for keeping her emotions in check. We must end his life now. He is an abomination. Sparing him would leave the world in greater danger than it already is. We are oracles of Asaseya. Our duty is to protect the earth. The mistress shook him more violently than before. His survival makes that duty impossible. The baby giggled. Asantua started to mourn softly. Nodding in between sobs, she understood. Never in the history of the order had a male child crossed between the water breaking of the women. Men, usually led by their emotions, could hardly control the power that the earth gave. The smoke had never predicted war and death for any offspring of Asaseya. It had always been a pronouncement of blessings, fruitfulness, and a display of the power each newborn would possess. The mistress made for the opening of the hut, holding the child like the abomination he was. The men allowed to stay in the order were only for the purposes of mating, nothing more. The oracles got rid of them when they were no longer useful to them. Much of the chaos of the world around them had been caused by men. Wait, mistress, Nana called out, almost in the faintest of whispers. All eyes now turned towards the fire. The fire was overflowing the boundaries that had been dug out for it. Nana had shifted farther away to prevent herself from getting scorched, or worse, being set aflame. Then, just as suddenly as it rose, it disappeared in a whiff, leaving nothing but white smoke in its wake. The mistress approached it cautiously. A shoot of a plant forced its way out of the hard earth where the fire had been. What does this mean? The mistress asked. They both doubled back as they watched the plant suddenly change color from green to a white shade, similar to the newborn's hair. The baby dangling from her hand giggled yet again. For a second, they had forgotten about him. There must be chaos for a new nation to bloom. I am not really sure, mistress, but it seems the survival of all things depend on him. Nana was confused as she spoke. Nana, the most gifted with fortune telling, had never been confused, and that admission seemed to scare the mistress even further. She looked at the baby giggling in her hand and walked over to his mother and laid him on her chest. At least the dying woman could feel her child while she decided what to do with this oddity. And that's the end of the prologue. Very interesting. And so basically, this was the birth of Okonfo Anochi. And according to myth or folk tales, oracles were supposed to birth female children who would then inherit and also become traditional priestesses in the Ashanti kingdom. And so the birth of a male child was ominous. And from what I just read, it's clear to see that some very intriguing stuff is about to happen in this book. And so, if you are a fan of fantasy, history, especially African history, Ghanaian history, this is definitely a book to consider reading or to add to your TBR. So, yeah. Mhm. So, does anyone have thoughts on what I just read? Or let me know in the comments what you are currently reading. Yeah. Hmm. In another, you're reading Not a Love Song. Who's that by? So if you are on the live, be on the lookout for the recommendations people are going to put in the chats. Oh, I see. Is it a series? Like, the one that we are reading in book club, is this like a continuation or they are all standalones? Ooh, nice. Exciting. So, Barbie, feel free. So, the next book I'm going to read, you've read and you enjoyed. Yeah, the one from Cara Joy. So, feel free to put whatever you're reading. It doesn't have to be related to what I just read. Ah, yeah. Hey, we're almost halfway. So, yeah. So, for those who just joined, I just read the prologue of The Usurper's Dream, which is by Yayi Kobna, a Ghanaian author. And this is the book of the month for Akenkan Book Club, which is the book club for my bookstore, Akenkan Bookstore, which is based in West Legon, Accra, Ghana. We also have a website, akenkanbooks.com. So, two very different books today. Be interesting to see how things go moving forward. Oh, Barbie, yeah. I mean, you can't go wrong with Abby Jimenez. Yeah. Hi, Dede. Thanks for joining. Okay, so next up is Take a Ride with Me by Cara Joy. And I came across this book on TikTok while I was searching for, I think I did a search for either Black Christian romances or African Christian romances. And this popped up, and I realized the author was Ghanaian. And so I went to read another book of hers. I don't have it here. New Love on the Lake. That one is a novella. And I enjoyed it. And so I went on to read this one. And this was book of the month for the Black Christian Romance Book Club. Yeah, this was for July, June, July, I think. Oh, Baby, you've read I think I have the one you just mentioned. It's up here. Yep. I have Stay With Me by Cara Joy. Yeah. And if, like me, you tend not to be a fast reader of, when the books are longer, Cara Joy's books are a very good length. It's very easy to finish them. Like this, you can finish in a day if you don't, if you know, you neglect other responsibilities. But yeah. So let me share the synopsis of Take a Ride With Me. When Cheska Ampa moves 300 miles to a new city to escape the pain of a broken engagement, the last thing on her mind is love, let alone a husband. Dr. Zadok Cho is a handsome surgeon who is also a hopeless romantic. Shout out to a hopeless romantic who's on the live right now. He's convinced Cheska is the woman for him, but she's been burned before and will not risk it. Can Zadok help her see beyond her past pain and fall in love with him? Take a Ride With Me is the first book in the Philly Doctors Contemporary Christian Sweet Romance series. If you enjoy sweet romantic stories that also feature the power of God to heal broken hearts and lives, then you will love Take a Ride With Me and the Philly Doctors series. So yeah. Oh, nice. So, Barbie, I think there's a third book after that as well. And that is Want You With Me. So it's like 3 in a series, if it's not even 4. Want You With Me. Yeah. So, okay. Hi, Dr. Ya. Thanks for joining. But yeah. So I will read. So for this one, I don't think I will read from the beginning so that anyone who decides to read it can discover it for the first time on their own. So I will actually start reading from chapter 2. So this is Take a Ride With Me by Cara Joy, and I'm reading. It had been barely 2 weeks since Cheska started a new nurse practitioner role. It was the biggest city she had lived in. It was also perfect because nobody knew her here. A fresh slate, a new beginning. Just what she needed. Donna Abenathi, the grandma